All right, here is a video review for the final exam. It's going to be fairly short. Uh, I hope all of you have already opened the file called Final Exam Review and at least taken a look at it. Remember, it becomes available on Monday the 10th, and you can take that test until, I'm looking at a calendar here, till May 16th. That's Sunday. That's a long time. Uh, Procrastination. Fascinating word. Putting things off. All right. It's so tempting to just wait and wait and wait. The problem some people end up having is that you can't log in, something doesn't work, your computer explodes, who knows what. Please, please don't wait. As I said in my email, you can always log in early, make sure everything's okay, and but you don't have to start the test. You can go back, re-log in, just make sure it works, but don't wait till the last minute. All right, again, the chapters that are covered are chapters 4, 6, 10, 11, 13, and 14. I did not have any questions on this test from chapter 15 or 16. We don't cover those chapters this semester. All right, so uh, those are the chapters. I'm not going to go through everything on my list. I have the review sheets printed out here. Uh, Let me just make a few comments, and then you can go back and do the review yourself. I often have emails from students saying, well, are the questions based on your lectures or on the reading? Like most professors, they say, well, both, of course, which is absolutely true. I think you'll find that my PowerPoints make great review material. But again, as I said in the email, I don't cover everything in those PowerPoints. And I tried in this uh, written review for you to include material that will be on the test that I didn't get to in the lectures. So, yes, the PowerPoints will be tremendously helpful in getting you ready for the test. And then the review that I provided should help supplement material from the chapters that are on the test that I didn't particularly emphasize in my lectures. Okay, I feel like I'm going around in circles here. I think you get it. On every one of the chapter review bullet points here, I say look at the key terms at the back of each chapter. I even help you out by telling you what page they're on. Now, I know you're all using the electronic book. I think the pages match. I guess I could break rule number one and apologize if they don't. I have a hard copy that I've been using, and I have not compared it with the online book. I think they're the same. If not, you should still be able to find all of this in any case. So what do I say about chapter 4? Let me just run down the list. Again, I said be sure to review those key terms at the end of the chapter. Page 76 is what I have on here. Those key terms pop up in many of the questions. And then I also remind you to review my PowerPoint on outlining a speech. For some reason, I feel as if doing this class online, I haven't emphasized that as much as I normally do in class. But there's definitely questions that relate to outlining on the test. Now, outlining a speech, we covered that in the first half of the semester, but it does crop up again in this. Oh, by the way, before I forget, remember, the test is not cumulative. The test is only about the chapters. It only covers the chapters that I've listed here on the review sheet. But occasionally things do crop up. So yeah, I would say go back and have a look at that PowerPoint on outlining a speech. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you understand the idea of the specific purpose, the thesis statement, how you construct the main points, and a term that I did not use in any of my lectures, but you can find it in chapter 4, something called internal consistency, which means that you don't wander all over the place. All right, so make sure you review those ideas, and especially specific purpose and thesis statement. All right, chapter 6, researching your topic. This is kind of a funny chapter, I think. And again, because we're not in class, I didn't cover it as much as I normally would. Oh my gosh, I started teaching university classes in communications a long time ago. So long ago there was no internet. And I don't even think I had a computer in my office at that point. So when we got to the section on researching your topics, my students and I all met at the library. Oh, kind of miss those days. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so chapter 6. Again, the key terms are on page 128. Make sure you look at those. And I mentioned for chapter 6 in particular, they're on the same, I think it's the same page as it's the page before. I don't know. Right next to the key terms, there's questions for discussion. And for this chapter in particular, I think those are very helpful because they reflect the kind of questions that will appear on the test about researching your topic. Make sure you understand what it means to consider your audience. And this next item pops up quite a bit in the test. Be sure you understand the difference between an informative speech and a persuasive speech. There's quite a few questions that relate to that. There are other terms that may or may not be in the key terms. Two of them are currency and citations. Pretty sure you know what citations are, but look up that word currency. I think that crops up somewhere. And how do you prepare for your topic? I mean, what do you do to get ready to actually put your speech together? And then there's a few questions that pop up about conducting interviews, and I didn't talk about that a lot, if at all, that I remember. Make sure in chapter 6 that you look at that little section about conducting interviews. All right, then chapter 10, and as I say, my favorite chapter, which is using language effectively. As you know, I love words. Oh, here comes my clock. I love words, big, fat, buttery words that melt in your mouth. Yes. And so make sure you know slang, jargon, idioms, euphemisms, cliches, similes, and metaphors. In my PowerPoint about using language effectively, I don't think I talked about similes and metaphors. Make sure you look at that in the chapter. Also, there's two terms, and I know I covered this, connotative and denotative. Make sure you understand those. Another term that I didn't particularly cover, though, redundancy, in other words, repeating things so that you reinforce the ideas as you talk about them in your speech. Key terms. And then I talked a little bit about this, but again, look at the chapter 10. How language and culture are so tremendously intertwined that the language you grow up with, whatever your first language is integral to the culture that you're raised in. So again, review that. And then I mentioned that it's well worth reviewing the PowerPoint on using language that I posted, because most everything is in there. There's a few terms like redundancy, similes, and metaphors that may not, well, I know they're not in that particular PowerPoint, but everything else is there. So that should be helpful. Chapter 11, integrating presentation material. As I said in the lecture itself, unfortunately, we're not doing that for this class. I certainly wish we were. But if you ever get stuck at work where you have to give a talk to your fellow employees or whatever it might be, you may find yourself needing to integrate some kind of media into your presentation. So review that chapter. As always, I say, look at the key terms and make sure you understand things like, what you do with an overhead projector, what's the impact of using video in a speech. What else do I have here? How can media of some kind, and media can cover all kinds of things, from a whiteboard to a flip chart to an overhead projector to PowerPoint slides, which is pretty much the most common kind, using video. And I asked the question here, how does using video in a speech affect that speech? And again, make sure you look at that. I will tell you, using too much video takes away from the speech. Typically, I recommend that you don't use more than 30 seconds of video if you have to use video. Keep it short. All right. And then chapter 13, informative speaking, key terms, look at those. And then there are two areas, and they're in my speech or my lecture about informative speaking. Make sure you know the types of speeches: object, process, event, concepts, and so on. You have to know those. Those are really important. Then also know the patterns: chronological, spatial, topical, narrative, and cause and effect. Review those. My suggestion is to get a good old piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and just write these down with a brief, what is chronological? It means you're doing things in order or sequence. What is spatial? How things are physically related. Whatever you want to write down. It will make things go so much faster during the test. So that's my suggestion. Again, review my PowerPoint on specific purpose and thesis. Let's see what else. Oh, and there's a figure 13.1 in the book. It's on page 258 that I think will be very helpful for you. And then here's a term I did not use in any of my lectures: gate watching, and that's on page 259. Basically, that means that your audience wants you to be accurate. But read the little paragraph about gate watching. Once again, the questions for discussion for chapter 11 on page 276 are pretty good. So I would say look at those. I think they'll be very helpful. And then finally, chapter 14, persuasive speaking. Let's see, key terms. All the terms I say here are important. And then there's a little section on reflections that's very helpful as well. You need to know the three types of persuasive speeches: a speech of fact, value, or policy. Remember, a speech of fact is quantitative, measurable sorts of things. The lecture I did about the flat earth was a speech of fact. The other speeches that I got from YouTube, especially the one "Be a Hero," I really like that one. That's obviously a speech of value. It's quantifiable. You're talking about the quality. Your quality of life will be better if you try to be a hero. I did not find what I considered a decent policy statement. But again, just remember, a speech of policy is one where you're trying to convince people to do something that will affect a large number of people. So, and you can think of that policy. Legalizing marijuana. And I used to get a lot of speeches about legalizing marijuana that would be a speech of policy. So you need to know those. Again, get that piece of paper and write it down. Fact, value, policy. Just a little note next to each one. You'll glide through the test if you do that. Let's see, what else do I have on here? Okay, again, why is the call to action so important in a persuasive speech? I'll tell you. If you don't tell people at the end of your speech what you want them to do, the call to action, then you haven't given an effective persuasive speech. And in both those YouTube videos that I posted, Taking a Nap and also Be a Hero, there's a very clear call to action. Taking a nap is good for you. It will improve your life. Okay, that's pretty much a statement of value, isn't it? Be a hero. And he says, you can do this. So again, you can go back and look at that. But the call to action is incredibly important. What can you do in a persuasive speech to enhance your credibility? Tell stories about yourself. A lot of good factual information. Depends on the kind of speech that you're giving, fact, value, or policy. And then I say, look for this term, hedges. Hedge language. If you say, if you use qualifying words, I believe, I think, and so on, those are like hedging your bets. They don't make for a very strong argument. But anyway, look for the word hedge or hedges, hedge words. And then finally, Monroe's motivated sequence. All right. Yeah, there's some questions about this. And even though it's kind of buried in chapter 14, look at my PowerPoint. It's not very long. I go through it step by step. Finally, again, take that piece of paper and write down the 5 steps of the motivated sequence. Attention, need, satisfaction, visualization, and action. Make a little note by each one of those words as to what it is. And then it'll make it very easy when you get to those questions on the test. Once again, there's I don't have it in front of me. There's 75 questions, or is it 70 questions? Oh dear, I'm not prepared either. Anyway, I think there's 65 multiple choice and 5 short answer for 70 questions total. I think I got that right. And then you have 2.5 hours to take the test. As I said in my note, do not try to pause the test. If you stop the test midway through because you have to run to the bathroom and you come back and turn it on, it's gone. The computer, the system assumes if you stop the test, you're done and you can't get back in. Also, if you start the test at 11 o'clock on Sunday night, the 16th, you may run out of time because it ends at 11:59. So make sure that you are prepared. Use the bathroom right away and have your water ready, snack, whatever you might need, and turn off all the distractions. And you shouldn't need 2.5 hours to get through this test. It shouldn't be a problem. All right, I don't know if you can hear my phone making funny little noises or not. I'm gonna put it away there. All right, so there you go. I hope this was helpful. And as always, make sure if you have questions, email me right away. Thanks a lot, and good luck on the test. And I'm looking forward to all the speeches. Bye-bye.